once again, my name is Cody Owen. I work out of the Orlando office here in Florida, and today I'll be presenting SOLIDWORKS inspection for everyone. So, SOLIDWORKS inspection, you're like, well, what is it? And well, what it does is it's a tool that helps you streamline the creation of first article inspection reports. So what you have is a SOLIDWORKS drawing, and you want to have some of these dimensions, callouts, whether they be geometric tolerances, such and so forth, have everything ballooned out so that way you can have that inspected at the very end, whether a technician does it or one of the engineers does it themselves. And there's a bunch of default templates in place, a bunch of standards, ANSI standards, and ISO standards, but you can take those and you can kind of customize them for your own organization. And I'll show you a little bit of that customization here in the demo itself. And then, of course, at the end of that, you want to be able to have some kind of report to to report out all of your measurements. So you can take that straight to a Microsoft Excel document. You can take it to a PDF. You can even take it into, if you're working with a SOLIDWORKS add-in, you can actually create a SOLIDWORKS inspection project and have that opened up in a standalone version. Last but not least, we'll look at some input measurements for the data you get from, say, like a CMM machine, like a Faro ARM or the PC DMIS tools. Take a look at that. So you're thinking, okay, well, that's great. I know what it is now, but why use it? Why is that important to me? Well, right now, 85% of all the first article inspection reports are performed manually. And you're like, wow, that's actually a lot. that is a pretty astounding number. But if you think about it, all the human errors that could be involved in it, and the inconsistencies really is key here, because if you have 3 quality engineers that's producing some kind of first article inspection report, depending on which one you get it from, you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. The technician will look at it and be like, what? So you want to have those a consistency across the board, which will in turn improve the quality, and you won't have to worry about each one of those quality engineers wasting their time going through and creating their own individual reports when they could be just using a standard template across the board. And of course, in the end, that'll save you a lot of costs. So SOLIDWORKS has 2 versions of inspection. It has the add-in, which works inside of SOLIDWORKS. So it's native. You open up native SOLIDWORKS drawing files or part files, and then you also have the standalone version. And the standalone doesn't need to have SOLIDWORKS installed. It's just its own little button at the bottom of your screen, just another application on your machine. And from that, you actually use PDFs, TIFFs, whatever kind of documents that you can produce from other CAD programs. And it doesn't have to be SOLIDWORKS programs. As long as you can open it up, you can read the dimensions, you can use it inside the standalone version. And of course, when you jump up to the professional package of that, you can enter in your measured data, as well as directly import some of that CMM data. We'll take a look at that a little later on in the broadcast. So we're going to break this down into 3 sections. First, we're going to start with our add-in. And the add-in, start with our project creation. We're going to add some balloons and then output some of that documentation. Let's take a look at it real quick. All right. So everybody should see my SOLIDWORKS screen. I've just got a drawing up of this little knuckle on the screen itself. And I've already got my SOLIDWORKS inspection add-in added in. And it's just like any one of those other add-ins, your markup, your evaluate, your annotations. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a new project with this. Go up here, and I'm going to start a new project from scratch, so that way I can show you kind of the ins and outs of where it begins and where it ends. All right. So now we want to go over here and we want to pick out one of our templates. And the point of having all these templates is definitely because of all the standards that are out there, all the ANSI standards and all the ISO standards. But in the end, this is where you can build that consistency across the board, where you don't have everybody just making their own first article inspection reports randomly from one person to the next. All right. So now we have the creation of this inspection project. And we just need to go through some general settings, import some of those, and then we can go on to the next step. So the first thing that you can do is you can easily go here and you can start typing in the name. Oh, if I can spell it correctly, there we go. The name of the part itself. And just like I almost misspelled it, hey, that's human error. That'll happen. So what you can do inside of this, instead of typing all of the credentials in here, you can actually go to the part number, and you can choose the part number from the file properties inside of SOLIDWORKS. So isn't that much easier just to be able to click in here, choose the revision, maybe choose the document number, and keep going. So I'm kind of doing this the manual way of going through and importing these properties. You can actually set up your template so that way it'll pull in all of these items automatically. All we have to do is hit our next button here, and we can set up our extraction setting. This, we can include the dimensions, we can include notes, we can include callouts, or if we didn't want to include them, we could simply uncheck them. And then if you have specific dimensions about the drawing that's marked for inspection only, you can just include those. You don't have to include all of them. In this case, we'll include everything. I'll go ahead and click next here. And now we're going to look at the tolerance settings. Just have this set up either by precision or range, and you can choose your units. And then down here at the bottom, you can actually choose the units themselves and then mark the tolerances for angular and linear. So once everything is set up, all we have to do is hit our green check.
It's going to be 8 calls.
And now, what SOLIDWORKS does is it goes through and it makes all of these little notes automatically for us. Isn't that pretty awesome? How we didn't have to go in there and click on each one of these individually. Just think about that for a second, how you've been doing this in the past. And just with the click of a few buttons, we can have all of these dimensions automatically set up for our inspection report. So take, for instance, I'll zoom in up here so we can see the ones up top. In the project template, how it's set up, it's set up for these guys, these numbers to be just located just to the left of the dimension itself, and you can change that to wherever you want. As a matter of fact, you can go up here, and I'll go to the layer properties, for instance, and you can actually change the color of the balloons themselves, which is pretty nice if you wanted to change them. In this case, we're going to leave them the same, but it's just as easy as that if you wanted to make customizations to this. The other thing here is when we click on this 70 plus or minus 0.5, that it automatically recognizes that over here in our properties for our tolerances. So if it has a tolerance built into it and into the dimension, it'll recognize it. But take, for instance, this 90 dimension down here, it just uses the tolerances that were set up in the project template. So it's very smart. It recognizes everything that you see on the screen, and you're good to go. All right, so I'll fit this to screen so that way we can see everything. And now what we need to do is we just need to create a report, right? Because everything's ballooned, it's ready to go. So check this out. We have different options available to us. We can export this to a 2D PDF. We can even export it to an e-drawing that became available in the last couple of years. But this guy right here, export to Excel, this is the one that we want to see because this one's really powerful. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add the correct template. There we go. So I've built this template here so that way we can see some of the customizations that you can do inside of Excel itself. Let's go ahead and hit a green check here, and I'm going to override this guy. There we go. So we're sitting back, relaxed, let SOLIDWORKS do all the work for us, and now we can go down here and we can take a look at our inspection report. And as you can see, when we go through, it'll fill out the form for us. It'll put in, if we had like a bill of materials, which I'll show you that in a minute, it'll show us the bill of materials down here on the screen. As a matter of fact, I'll show you a little bit more about how you can color code some of these things a little later inside standalone version itself. So you've got your document made up. and you're ready to go, right? And that's pretty much all there is to having the add-in inside of SOLIDWORKS. It recognizes all of those dimensions automatically, and it's a very familiar environment. You know, if the mechanical engineers are having to do this work, they're going to be able to pick it up and learn it very quickly and produce some very consistent reports in the. All right. So, talked a little bit about the add-in. The next thing we want to look at is the standalone version. So the standalone version itself is you go through the same, it's kind of the same motions where you create a project, you go in there, and this time since you're working with, since we're going to be working with a PDF, we have to use our optical character recognition to define some of those characters for, say, our file properties, and then also use our Smart Extract tool to pick up some of those dimensions, notes, and so forth. Let's take a look at that. So I've got my SOLIDWORKS Inspection standalone already open for me. Now I'm going to go ahead and start a new project. When I start a new project, I'm just going to use this template here. Once again, these templates are just standard templates, and you can easily go through and customize these things as you want. So I'm going to use my RevC. In a little bit, I'm going to show you how we can go through and create a revision update and with our RevD, and how easy that is to do. All right. So what we have here is pretty much we have that same drawing. It's just got a couple more items on it. I'm going to go ahead and look at our properties. Fit this to screen so you can see it all. All right. So we can see our whole drawing here. And now what we want to do is we want to go in here and either type the part name in, the part number, revision, you know, kind of do all that little tedious work that has to be done. But see those little lightning bolts next to it? Well, that's that character optimization. And we can actually pick up those characters by clicking on the little lightning bolt, going over here and drawing a box around the name itself, and it inputs it over here. So that's pretty awesome, right? If we want to, we can go ahead and add a couple more in it there. So that way we can pick up everything. So it's not, it doesn't have those file properties built into it like the SOLIDWORKS drawing did, but it's very easy just to draw a box around some, around some text and just make sure it looks good. And that's good to go. So you can do that with the general settings themselves and also your custom properties. You can do the same thing for the materials, for the manufacturing process, such and so forth. All right. So I'll click OK there. I'll go ahead and fit this thing back to screen, and we're going to focus in on the upper portion of this document. Okay, so now we have showed you how we can pull those file properties in. Well, now let's take a look at some of these dimensions. I'm going to go up here to my Smart Extract, and I'm going to just draw a box around our 150 plus or minus a half. And I can verify all the information over here in this characteristic by making sure that the nominal value is 150 and our upper and lower limits plus or minus a half. So we can go through and we can simply draw a box around each one of these guys, and it picks it up automatically for us. Let's see, let's check out this guy here. So once you go through and you make so many changes, the inspection tools say, hey, you want to save this? You can adjust that. I'm just going to say no for the time being, but that's nice to have that little guy remind us. But I went through and I added the 65 diameter, and it picked up the diameter for us there. So it has that recognition built into it in case, if it's some other type of dimension, even the angle for the degree. So it's just literally a matter of going through and drawing a box around some stuff to be able to pull in those dimensions. So this one, as you can see here, it didn't pull in the correct nominal value. So what I like to do here is I'll draw a box around the nominal value in our screen, pick that, so it'll designate that 30 for the nominal, and then I can do the same thing for the plus or minus portion. And didn't look like it got it, but that's okay, because you know what? You can manually go in there and type that in instead. So even if you have to go through and make little changes like that, It's really not too hard to do. We'll go ahead and grab a couple more dimensions down here to get these guys, and we'll be on our way. So it's not a lot to it. We're able to go through and pick a bunch of stuff. But what about notes? What if we wanted to recognize some notes as well? Well, I'll zoom in over here. I'll go to our notes, and I'll start drawing boxes around each one of these. And you may be thinking like, oh man, I don't want to have one, one individual characteristic for each one of those notes. Well, that's okay, because down here in our characteristics window, we can actually group those together to be under one shared balloon, and then move the balloon over so it's not covering it. So it's really easy to make those little modifications like that inside as we go for any notes, any dimensions, what have you. All right, so we've got that. In some standards, they actually have to make you go through and include like a bill of materials. So I'm going to show you how we can import a bill of materials from Excel. Down here in our table manager, I'm going to click on the bill of materials tab. I'm going to click on this import button here, and I'm going to go to a bill of materials. I'm going to open this up. What SOLIDWORKS is going to do is it's going to recognize all those bill of materials inside of this window, and it's going to put them all part name, part number. Everything's laid out according to the standards that are set out there. You may not always have to do this, but it's really nice to know that that is the capability that you have with this tool. And take, for instance, if you had to go through and you had to add more sheets to the document, we're just working with one PDF right now. If we wanted to add more sheets, we could go up here to the top of the screen and add more PDFs. So that way we're not working with just one, we could be working with 20. And speaking of going through all 20 of those sheets, and you're like, okay, well, I've got everything noted, I've got everything set up for the first article, inspection report. And you're like, I wonder if I missed anything. Well, check this out. There's an option here that'll hide the extracted annotations. So if you take a look, everything that I've already marked for inspection is hidden, and everything else is still visible. You can see these ones that I missed here. So just little tools like that, just to show and hide tools, really help you become more efficient and getting these documents out sooner than later. All right, so I'm going to go back so we can see everything. And now we want to maybe go in here and start our report. So now I'm not going to finish all this, going through and boxing all these dimensions in. I think you kind of get the gist of that. I want to go up here to our home button, and I want to export this out to an Excel document. And as you can see here, I've got all these different templates set up. I'm going to choose this little guy here, and I'm going to go ahead and export it. And since it's for our Rev C, we'll take a look at that real quick. All right, looks like it's coming up down here at the bottom of the screen. Fantastic. All right, so in this form, you can see that all of the dimensions in here are similar to what we saw a little while ago. On the first page, this is where it includes all of those bill of materials that we imported in. So that's nice that information's there. But now check this out. So if we wanted to go in and we wanted to start typing in our report, what we're going to have is that we're going to see our pass fail. I mean, just a very, very easily seen. Everything's either a pass in green or failed in red. So what you can do is you can have that in both the standalone version set up in the Excel document as well as the add-in. And all of these documents are customizable. These Excel documents are customizable, and this will help the users be able to identify quickly those failing characteristics. So you're like, well, that's pretty awesome to be able to see which ones failed, which ones passed, and to be able to have the bill of materials. So the next thing probably in the back of your mind is, well, what about the revision changes? Like, oh man, those dreaded revision changes. I'm gonna have to go back and redo the entire document all over again. No. Not with SolidWorks inspection. You don't have to redo the whole thing. Once you've went in and you have placed your 100, inspection tags on each one of these dimensions, what you can do is with the same document, just a new revision, we can go to our compare tool. So I'm going to click on compare, and I'm going to compare it to our Rev D. And what this does is this overlays the new drawing in green over the original drawing, which is kind of everything's marked in red. So I'm going to zoom in here so you can see it a little bit better. All right. And now you can see some of these items up here in the top. You can see that it looks like that same red and green color are overlaid. That means all those are good. I don't have to worry about those. So check this out. When I scroll down here, I'm going to see that, oh man, I've got this guy in red. That was on my previous revision. That's no longer there. And it has been replaced with these guys over here in green. So you're like, oh, that's, go over, look at everything. You're like, that's it. That's all that we have to worry about. Okay, then. So that's all we're going to worry about. Hit the replace button. And what we can do is now we can go down here and we can delete the old mark. As a matter of fact, it'll renumber it if you want it to. I'll click yes here to renumber it. And now I can easily go up here, grab my dimension tool, and start adding the dimensions to the ones that are newly added to the revision. So you don't have to go through and recreate every single one of those. You just have to mark the ones that have been updated. Think about the time that you can save just in that tool by itself, that you don't have to go through and redo every single thing there on the screen. That's just remarkable. I guarantee you, there's a lot of you are like, yeah, that's pretty amazing. The benefits of that are just outstanding. We'll jump back over to our tool here, to our PowerPoint, and you're going to see how simple it was to extract that data, and then of course attaching those the bombs from Excel. And last but not least, there, the big kicker of it is those revision changes are just made to be so simple, and they're no longer time consuming as they probably have been in the past. So far, we went through and we looked at the add-in, we looked at the standalone. Let's take a look at more of the professional version, the one that you can actually have input data inside the program itself, or even import it from a CMM input. So let's take a look at that. Jump back over to my standalone version here. All right, some of you may not have noticed that there was this little guy down here in the bottom window, and it's associated with all of the dimensions that we've typed in there so far. So take, for instance, if I had this open and I just wanted to manually import some of these dimensions, I can go in here and I can start typing them in just as you see. And you're going to notice that there's going to be a difference between some of them that have that green, and then straight ones that have yellow and then also red. And those let you know very easily, in just a quick visual look at it. You can see that, hey, that's passed, or that's failed, or that's just on the cusp of failing or passing. It's that marginal zone. So you can go through, you can actually, as a matter of fact, if you had 3 or 4 lots, you can go through, you can add as many lots here as you want. And the really, really nice thing about this is if we click on any of these dimensions, let me zoom in up here at the top of the page. It's actually going to show the ones that are marked in green, the ones that are marked in yellow. You can see which dimensions passed and which ones actually failed. That's pretty remarkable. That's a really nice capability of this program, to be able to quickly see, hey, that's a problem, or hey, we can leave it alone. But you're like, well, what about not doing that? What about importing these dimensions from your CMM data? We can do that as well. So check this out. Go ahead and fit this back to screen. I'm going to go up here and pin this so that way I can grab it. And all we have to do is just add our files to it. I've already went in here. I've already collected the data. And it's going to be these 3 text files. So I'm not just loading one text file. I'm loading 3 different text files from, say, 3 different lots or 3 different samples. I can go ahead and open them up, and what you're going to see is all of the data is going to be input from each one of these guys. So you see the file sets, file 1, 2, and 3, and you have all of your dimensions that were added in there. So inside of this tool, you're like, well, that's kind of nice. Let's see what this can do now. Well, I like to use this auto assign feature. It was added not too long ago. You can actually go through and say, add the plus or minus nominal dimensions. And yeah, if we got anything else in there, we'll override it. But as you can see down here in our measurements input, you can see all the things that have passed and all the things that have failed. So if I just went through, did my due diligence, and had put a dimension around every one of these and made sure everything was right, we'd have a lot more data down here at the bottom of the screen. But since I didn't do as many, you can kind of see the end results and get a good visual of, wow, that's really nice to be able to see that. And then as a matter of fact, if you have any up here that you know that, say for instance, one of these other dimensions that doesn't have a characteristic affiliated with it, you can click in here and you can choose that particular characteristic from the screen itself. So I like to use in the auto assign. It'll go through and does most of the hard work for me, and then it's just a matter of kind of filling in the blanks after that. And that's just takes very little time to do in comparison to having the 3 inputs come from that CMM data and having to look at every one of those manually from, say, from an Excel document, comparing to what you have there on the screen. So huge time saver here, and you can easily see which ones passed and which ones fell. As a matter of fact, you can actually take this into a report, for instance. Some of you may have government contracts, or some of you may have some kind of prototype that you're testing, and you want to be able to see how it's stacked up over the last several examples that you've worked on. So what I want to do here is I want to add a template here for the results. Export this out, and we'll go ahead and give it the Rev D. So that way we can take a look at our report from our CMM data. So check that out. So as I mentioned, if I'd have done my due diligence and added a few more things in there, you wouldn't see so much gray stuff, but hey, you kind of get the picture of what's going on here. So if you had an audit that you needed to go back on, like some data from 6 months ago, you could easily just pull up this file as soon as you found it, and you could actually say, look, no, this is the data from it. This is what we based this part off of. Say if it was a prototype, or if something had failed and it had to be audited. In other words, you would have that data there to be able to see it and verify it. All right, so that's pretty remarkable about what you're able to do just with that measurement input, whether you input them there manually with the standalone package, or you step up to the professional package and include that CMM data. And of course, having all these documents, all these Excel documents, they're great for having just in case something in the future comes up and you have to fall back on them. So today I went through, I've showed everybody kind of the ins and outs of the SOLIDWORKS add-in, the standalone package, the professional package, and in a nutshell, like, this tool is really simple to use. I believe just by showing you this demo, some of you probably can figure out how exactly to do that, just using just the standard documents that you have inside of SOLIDWORKS, the standard templates. But we can definitely help you out with that if you want any more customization to it. And also, with this tool, with the inspection tool itself, the consistent documentation is key. That's what a lot of companies, as a matter of fact, that I used to work for when I was going through and doing some quality checks myself. There was so many different ways it was done. It was just a headache, and it really was. And so having that consistency across the board is key, and saving time just in itself. So that way you're not having to jump back and forth between documents, try to figure out what was going on. And at the end of the day, you get to definitely increase the accuracy of the data that's being produced. And if you ever have to reference those in the future, you can always fall back on them and have all that documentation ready to go in case you have to do that.